Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Sydney from PhoneDog.com, and I have here the Samsung Replenish and the Samsung Transform. Both of these phones are on Sprint. They're both mid-range Android smartphones, and they're two of the few smartphones that have a physical keyboard. So we're going to compare both of them. You have two options. Which one is better? Which one should you get? That's what we're going to talk about in this dogfight. Before we get on to that, I had to say a special thanks to our friends at Best Buy Mobile. We thank them all the time because they send us free phones that we can add to our One Paw Bandit game, which is a game where you can win free phones. One of the great things about Best Buy Mobile is that they sell phones from every major US carrier. So instead of having to go to several different retail stores, you can just go to Best Buy Mobile and compare all of your options. So thank you, Best Buy Mobile, for being so awesome. Thank you guys for watching this video. Before we get on to the dogfight, I just want to let you guys know, if you saw the subtitle in the beginning of the video, my name was different. It's now Sydney Myers. I actually got married a year ago, and I just now got around to changing my name. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. This does answer the age-old question of, who's this chick married to? Aaron, Noah, or that dude from the Weekly Bone? Obviously, I'm not married to either one of them. I always thought it was funny that you guys thought I was married to one of them, as if I couldn't have gotten this job just based on my skills. Anyway, so I just want to let you guys know, let's get on to the dogfight. Okay, so on the left we have the Replenish, on the right is the Transform, and both have different form factors, so they do still have a physical keyboard, as I brought out in the introduction. So the Replenish has basically this candy bar slab form factor, and because the display and the keyboard are on this one front panel, they're both a little bit smaller than what we're used to. So the display is only about 2.8 inches diagonally, and then the keyboard is that portrait style keyboard, kind of like what we see on BlackBerries and the Palm Pixie and Palm Pre. So smaller on both fronts for the display and the keyboard. And the Transform is basically the form factor that we see on 90% of smartphones. You have the main display, it's large, takes up the entire front panel, and then the physical keyboard slides out to the left. So this is definitely what we're used to, and not only that, because of the form factor, you also get a larger display. So you have a 3.5 inch display as opposed to a 2.8 inch display. Now, personally, the smaller display didn't really bother me. I thought it would be a problem. I thought it would cause headaches and I have to squint a lot to read text, but it really wasn't that big of a problem, mostly because, for one thing, you can use it in landscape mode when you're in the web browser or certain apps, and also you can always zoom in and out if you need to read something. So it wasn't as big of a problem as I thought it would be. That being said, 3.5 inches, most people would take that over a smaller 2.8 inch display. Resolution is about the same, 320 by 480 on the Transform, and then 320 by 240. A little bit lower number, but that's just because it's basically, the Transform's display just cut in half, so that's why that number is a little lower. So neither one really has an advantage there. It's a low resolution for both of them. Text is kind of pixelated. They're both about the same. They're low-end or mid-range devices. Now, as far as the touchscreen responsiveness and just overall smoothness and scrolling and transitions, I found the Replenish was much better, and this is something that I talked about when I did the review of the Transform. The display is just, it's kind of sticky, kind of rough. It's not very smooth, and so whenever you're scrolling, it's just not very smooth. Sometimes it's hard to select things. It's just the display on the Replenish is just so much easier. Everything is smoother. A lot of that also has to do with the processor. And even though, if you look at the numbers, it would seem like the Transform has an advantage because the Transform has an 800 megahertz processor and the Replenish has a 600 megahertz processor. That being said, the Replenish still did much better. Just simple scrolling. You can see the Transform, there's a lot of lag. Transitions, aren't quite as smooth. There's a delay with basically everything that you do, and multitasking it just doesn't handle it very well, whereas with the Replenish, it's very smooth. The transitions, they're seamless, everything loads. Now, again, it is a low-end device, 600 megahertz processor, so it's not always going to be perfect. There are times when you load apps and you have to wait, a second or two, and there will be some lag occasionally, but it's just so much better than the Transform, that the Replenish is definitely much better on that front. The Transform just suffered from lag and choppiness and unresponsive screen. That was really my biggest problem with the Transform, just very unresponsive and laggy. So definitely the Replenish is the winner when it comes to that. Now, as you can see, both of them ship with stock Android. They both ship with, well, the Replenish ships with Android 2.2 and the Transform ships with Android 2.1. As you can see, it's been updated to Android 2.2. So we'll go to the settings here, go to About Phone. So it's been updated to Android 2.2.2, which is what the Replenish ships with. Again, it's stock Android. They both ship with also Sprint ID, so you can see both of them have the shortcut there to the to download ID packs and switch ID packs. You know, I talked about Sprint ID and the reviews for both of these. It's a nifty feature for getting packs of apps. I wouldn't necessarily use it for switching my theme entirely just to get to certain music apps or certain business related apps. But it can be useful for first-time users. That's what I usually say. But they do both ship with that and stock Android, so there's no UI enhancements here. It's just everything is stock. So the biggest similarity between these two phones is a physical keyboard, and they both have very different style keyboards, just because, like I said earlier, the form factor. With the Replenish, you get basically a BlackBerry-style keyboard, and it's very similar to the experience of typing on a BlackBerry. The keys are designed a little differently. They have kind of this bubble texture, but really it's very similar to a BlackBerry. And honestly, this is one of the best physical keyboards that I've ever used. It's very well designed. Even though it's smaller, it's a portrait-style keyboard, the keys have this bubble texture, like I mentioned, and so even though they're kind of squished together, it still kind of adds some separation there, so it makes it easy to touch by feel. You can easily feel the separation between each key, and then the keys are not the soft, squishy kind. I know a lot of people don't like that, but then again, they're not too firm to where you have to press so hard. It's like a workout for your thumbs. The keyboard is just absolutely fantastic. I'll type out quick message. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So you can see it's very easy to type on. You can type on as fast as you can and little to no errors. It's a great keyboard, very well designed, just one of the best keyboards that I've ever used. Now, the Samsung Transform also has a good keyboard. It's not as good, I will say that, but it is good because it's longer, because of it's not a portrait style keyboard. You have more space. It's island style keys, so kind of a little easier to differentiate the keys. They do have kind of a rubbery grip to them, and so for me personally, it's easier to type on usually because when I'm typing, my fingers aren't sliding around. Sometimes the plastic textured keys, it's my fingers slide around too much, whereas with this one, they have a nice grip to them. Now the problem is that the keys are too flat. You can see they're not raised at all, and whenever you have the mushy kind of keys, when they're not raised at all, when you press it, it goes down so deep that it's kind of uncomfortable. You can't type as fast because they do go down so far because of the style. So that kind of became a problem. If the keys were just raised a little bit more, this keyboard would have been perfect, but they're just too flat. That being said, it's still a great keyboard. Just not as good as the Replenish. So let me see if I can type out the same message. Jumps over the lazy dog. So it's not as good. Now for people with larger hands, this may be a better keyboard because this is definitely a small keyboard, just like a BlackBerry. So this may be good for people with larger hands. But still, the Replenish keyboard is just so much better. So definitely, the keyboard goes to the Replenish. Like I said, just one of the best keyboards that I've ever used. And it's the Transform has its advantages. The Replenish keyboard was just better.